go. Okay, so super excited for this number 5, I think it is, number 5 call on our Run to Executive. So we started these a few weeks ago and just and pulled this group together of all people who want to reach executive by the 30th of November. Or for those who already are executive, get back up to paid as executive. And for those of us who are paid as executive, making sure that we keep growing, and we're really committed to introducing 10 new consultants, so running with everybody. So how did this all begin? Getting Shawn and Carolyn on. It began, I'm just going to let someone else in. It began, actually, I don't know how many years ago. I meant to try and have a look, Shawn, but I was at a celebration in America, and you did this session on the power of helping people get to 5 cycles. And I watched that session. I was like, oh, this is so simple and makes so much sense. And I just loved it. And I've watched it a few times since then. So that's really where it all began. And then when we happened to, Leanne actually was the one who pulled us together for that dinner. And, we had dinner with you. And I know for Belinda, who's on this call as well, she says that was the highlight of her trip was that dinner, because, we just picked your brains, we talked about different things, and it was just amazing just to be hanging out on a cruise in the Caribbean, having dinner, and finding out from someone like yourself. So so those are the sort of 2 significant things that happened. And what I wanted to say about the 2 of you is really, and I asked you a few things, and your business covers all countries, which is really significant for us, particular number on this call who really want to build their global side of their business. Your legacy members, which for anybody on here who's newer, what that means is that when people reach that level of earning over $1 million in Isagenix, and also get what's called a re-entry. We won't go into that right now, but they have an incredible opportunity, and it's a really pivotal point in someone's Isagenix business, and definitely people that we see and really honor who are our legacy members. But also Shawn is he's a teacher, a sales teacher, he's a mentor, he's been a corporate executive, and together they've built a huge business within Isagenix. But the bottom line really to me for you guys is that I see Shawn and Carolyn as people who just do the do. And that's what this thing was like, just sitting around the dinner table talking, is that I know that the way you do your business is very much grassroots. The most important things are working with the people, and that's what I see you guys do. So I love the fact that when I asked that would you hop on this, it was no questions. It was like, yeah, sure, we'll come on. And I think it was you who first of all said, we'll even do 2 if you want. So I just really, really appreciate that. What I'd like to do before you start is just ask anybody to unmute, just so Shawn gets a feel of the group, of what has been something significant that's happened to you in the last couple of weeks while you've been working on this. Just give yourself, this is a chance to give yourselves a brag, something that you've done, and as a result of being on this run to executive. So who'd like to unmute? Mm-hmm. And we did say that we weren't going to have
it. I will jump in there really quickly. I have not, since getting to executive 4 years ago, I've not done this. And during this run, I got my stuff together and actually did it again and reached out to 100 people in one day. So, that's a big effort. And it felt like I really need to build that muscle again. So thanks for that one, Heather.
Thank you. That was a good challenge, wasn't it? Yeah. Who else? Nicole, you need to unmute. Instead of me bragging on you, what you've done this week, you can brag on yourself.
So Heather's just got home from spending the weekend with me and my husband Dean, and we had a couple of health hub events here at our house, and not a huge attendance, but very successful. Everyone who attended is enrolling as preferred customers and placing orders. So that will be 6 in total so far. So yeah, feeling really good about talking about isogenics face to face with people. So that's my jam. Love connecting one on one or one in a group. And yeah, so but I'm very new, Shawn. So I've only been with isogenics a couple, well, 3, I think, as an associate, now manager, 3 months. So very new. All a big learning curve.
Awesome. Thanks, Nick. And she went manager this week. So super cool. Congratulations. Okay. So anybody else want to unmute? Otherwise, we're going to move straight on and go to Shawn. Oh, Nick, I can see.
I can share
Yeah.
quickly. What I found is that normally I would put things off, or I would say, oh, well, you know, I don't want to bother that person. They're probably busy. And I'd make up all these stories in my head about why not to talk to someone about isogenics or why not to follow up with them. Whereas having, you know, like a target to aim for, my mindset completely changed. And I was like, I have to talk to enough people to meet this target. So I was like, oh, well, I can't worry about whether they're busy or they don't want to hear from me or any of those stories that I made up. I just went ahead and did it anyway. And, you know, of course, we all know that it's never as bad doing it as how you think it's going to be before you do the thing. So that's been really helping me. So I really appreciate just, you know, having to have those targets in place, even though I don't like it at the time.
Thanks, Bonya. That's great. Okay, awesome. We're going to hand over to Shawn because I really value your time and I don't want to waste any more of it. Yeah, over to you, Shawn. So yeah, I'm just going to hand the reins to you.
Well, thank you again very much for having me here, and it's a pleasure. And you know what, for me, I really like I love having conversations. So this can be very fluid. I'm not a very formal trainer. I love to have engagement. So, you know, during this conversation, if anybody has anything to ask or say, like, let's just make sure that you guys get a ton of value from it, or that at least you understand the concepts of what we're talking about. So like, as I'm hearing shares, you know, like, I know I'm supposed to be talking about something with the road to 5 cycles, but you know, when I hear about number targets and people embracing challenges but then also having a bit of struggle, Carrie Lynn and I just had a conversation about this today, and it's really remembering that the numbers represent something. You know, like the ability to reach out to people represents something. Like, we're not trying to get people, we're trying to solve problems, you know. And if we think about 100 reach outs, those are 100 problems we can potentially solve for people, you know. And when you really get the idea that isogenics can be a part of that solution, and it's not always going to be a solution for everybody, but that when we identify people's problems, we identify an opportunity to listen and then to provide a solution. And it's a different feel. It is selling, but it's a different feel when you really look at it that way. Do you guys understand what I'm saying? Does that make sense to you guys? And I think when you come from that place, it never feels like it's really icky, or that, you know, I think sometimes we can hold ourselves back from sharing because we feel like, oh, well, what if Tammy really, you know, she hears my message and she thinks that I'm just reaching out because I want to sell something to her. You know, how many of you guys have felt that way? Yeah. Okay. Right. You know, but if you knew that Tammy really suffered with, you know, one thing or another, You know, maybe her knees are really sore, or ankles are really sore, or back's really sore, and it's just been chronic over the years. But what really is going on is that she's about 20, 15 kilos overweight, and by helping her trim the weight, we'll take the pressure off the joints, and what if you could be that solution for her, right? And so it's not identifying that for them, but it's really reaching out as a service, and finding out more about, how they're going, and what the opportunities are, what the problems might be, and then, discussing how they think those solutions could come about. What do they think the answer is? Because a lot of times people come up with their own, they actually sell themselves, right? Because they've identified the problem, and then you're just there kind of shaping it, whether it's isogenics or not. They have to do something, right? If they want some, under all of the numbers, because today I'm going to be talking about numbers, is just really remembering that it's about people, right? And whether it's isogenics or anything else, people are the greatest assets we have. And it's not an asset in terms of making money. It's an asset in terms of bringing life to an organization and bringing life to an experience. So that's where I think I'd just like to start, because, when I think about my experience with isogenics, it was incredible as a personal health experience, but really it all changed when we met Jen and Jono, and Jen and Jono have become our absolute best friends in the world. They're like family to us. And Heather, I think when I first did the Road to 5 Cycles, how many of you guys have watched that old crusty YouTube video of the Road to 5 Cycles? Has anybody on this call seen it? It's like, it was the original. Actually, no, it was the second Aussie celebration. And Jim and Kathy flew down, and we had our first, Jen and Jono had brought their first little core group of people that were interested at that time. And it was a small group, but one was Roy McDonald. He does a lot of personal development down in Australia. Roy McDonald, you guys know? Okay, so I'm doing the Road to 5 Cycles on a whiteboard for Roy's group, and I didn't even know he was videoing. And then I think probably 2 years later, I was at somewhere else at another celebration. Somebody said, "Oh yeah, like I've seen your Road to 5 Cycles on YouTube." I'm like, "What are you talking about? Like, what do you mean?" And then they sent me the link, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't even know somebody was videoing this." Because I was just kind of riffing, on a whiteboard. I didn't, normally when you're going to video something, you're going to like formalize it, and it's going to be pretty polished, but that was pretty uncut. But anyway, I can't even remember, Heather, doing one at a North America celebration. Maybe I did, actually. So many years of kind of
I think you're right. I actually remember now. It was a breakaway group when we moved everybody around the hotel, and we had to travel from one room to the other, hordes of people moving. And I think it was a breakaway group. So I think
exactly.
You're right.
So I'm gonna actually share that, because this is, I haven't done this since since then, which was Celebration Breakthrough 2016. Welcome everybody to the past, 2016. And I was at the Aussie celebration, and we did exactly that. We did this breakout, and well, the idea of the Road to 5 Cycles is really about building legacy. And lots of times when you think about this, like you guys right now are in a run to executive, and executive is infinitely important to this whole process. And the reasons why it's important is because you've developed a team, like you've started to build some leverage in your business. And further to that, I can't remember, it was Nicole who just went manager. Yes. Manager to me is the construct of the compensation plan. So if you can get yourself to manager, you figured it out. That is all there is to it. It is the building block and the foundation of the business, right? So what you do from there is you do it again. You become a manager again. And then you have 4 consultants. And then guess what? You do it again. Then you have 6. And guess what you are? You're a director, right? And then you do it again, and then you do it again, and you're an executive. And you continue to do it because, as we know, if we've been through the business long enough, some people stay and some people don't. Some people fall off, some people have the vision. But the idea is that we're always wanting to build leverage. Now, consultants do not build leverage. And when we look, this is kind of, again, speaking a little bit away from this part of the conversation, but I'm going to give you a little breakthrough that Carrie Lynn and I had when we built our business. So in the first couple of years, we got to executive, we were kind of pulled into the business. We weren't network marketers. We were only product users. But we saw a little bit of a vision we started to share. It took us like, oh man, I think 9 or 10 months to become an executive. But that was since then, we've never lost our executiveship. We've always been an executive. So 16 years we've been in the business. We came in 2008. So those of you who are executives know it's not an easy task to maintain executive. You have to keep people activated and interested and all the rest of it. But how many of you guys are familiar with the idea of 4PET and the Elite Business Builders bonus, right? Like that whole idea that we get paid in our first 4 levels. And when we're talking about leverage, we had got ourselves to, in the first couple of years, to 2-star. I remember our benchmarks, so our average was about 28, 29 cycles. And we thought that was pretty good. I actually, it was a conversation where we were going to leave our jobs and focus on this full time. But when we went to head office, they invited us down because we had created this intention that we wanted to build the business a bit stronger. They looked at our organization, and at that point, they said, your business is entirely built on your first 2 levels. You have a level 1 and you have a level 2. And we had got ourselves to that 28, 29 cycle range. And Travis Garza at the time there, so it was Travis and Mac Larson. You guys may be familiar with Mac Larson because he was the GM of Australia for a bit. They sat us down. They're like, you know what? This is a great business, but there's no legacy to it. You don't have roots in the ground. You only have 2 levels, which means that some people come and some people go. You'll know when you have a business that'll hang on when you dig into levels 3 and 4. And that's when you really have leverage. So the goal as you start to grow your business and in this road to executive, and again, I've veered off just a touch, but if I could inspire any real thought and activity to what you guys are doing with the executive conversation, is to really focus on the 4 levels. And you can track that by participating in this Elite Business Builders bonus, right? You can, because it's all there for you. This bonus has been much better because, like, in the years that we've been growing, they've never really focused on the 4 levels. They've always focused on enrollments in their incentives. So this is really good. And I'm glad you guys are doing this run to executive because it's really important. So that's what I'll say about that. And then with this conversation, I come from a traditional business world. So I was a high school teacher. I got a little stale with that, thought that I'd get into business, and ended up selling pet food. Now, that is not business at all, but what did I know? I was teaching. I had no business experience. So I went and got a sales job. Little did I know, all of these things were really coming together, and I did well in the sales industry, and then was recruited out to run a distribution company, also in the pet industry. I've owned a manufacturing company in the pet industry. So I'm a business owner. I ran a corporate, one of the largest distribution companies in Canada in the pet industry. And then at that time, Isogenics found me. But in normal business, it takes time to build. Like, we all understand that for the first however many years, there's no profitability usually in business. Yet in a business like this, we can be profitable in minutes, right? Look at Nicole. She's been in for like a couple of months, and she's like, you know, just lighting it up. She's got people coming in. She's a manager. She's making money already in the profit center. That's not typical. And I think sometimes we get a little bit drunk in this illusion that this doesn't behave like a normal business. And that, you know, people think it's crazy that in 2 to 5 years, it's a long time to really carve out something special. But when you look at employment, it's like you're in there for 40 years and you never really get ahead, right? We're hoping for a retirement and we can barely afford to, like my parents, you know, they worked years in the medical service industry as nurses, and they can barely make it on their pension now. You know, they're like 70 something years old and they have lots of life left, and they're just, there's nothing there for them. But that's the conversation that we've been shaped into, you know. And when we have something like this, and I didn't understand it when we got into network marketing because I didn't really know what it was. But when you can build leverage and you can really build something with people, you have something special. And I just really want this conversation to shape in a way that you guys really understand what we have. Look at how this is kind of a bit fuzzy, but anyway, to do business, you can't have that dream. You can't have that $1 million dream with a minimum wage work ethic. And I'm going to say you can't have that dream with an employee mindset. Okay. You can't have that dream with an employee mindset because it's not a business mindset. There are two entirely different ways to make money. When you're an employee, you plug a coin in and you're going to get some value, right? You got to get paid to do the work. I want it now, and then I will do something. In this type of a business, sometimes you have to wait for the reward because you're building the foundation that's going to pay you for a lifetime. What I love about Isogenics is it actually recognizes that most of us come into this world from an employment background. And I'm not saying that being an employee is wrong. It isn't. Of course it's not. But the mindset needs to shift to really be successful in business. Because you have to understand that you have to sometimes delay reward, delay gratification for the work you're doing right now, having the vision that the reward is going to come in the future. Isogenics has done something beautiful, though, because they recognize this piece. So where, I don't know if I can see the chat, but where in our compensation plan does Isogenics gratify our need for something instant? Where have they identified that, yes, you know, you do some work and we get paid? Does anybody know? PIBs, 100%. And, you know, PIBs used to be restricted to just packs, you know, so you had to sell like a president's pack or a value pack or a 30-day pack, and then you'd get a PIB. Now, with a 20% PIB on any order of any size, it's beautiful. It's almost like the affiliate piece, you know, out there in the other opportunities. It really satisfies that first level sale. I do this and I get that. But what we really want to do is we want one to build retention, but we also want to build the leverage inside people sharing, right? And not everybody's going to share. We still operate in a world where probably 10 to 15% of our customers will ever share. But that's okay, right? That's okay. It's just about getting them to share at some point. The definition of wealth. When we really think about getting to wealth, and some of you guys may have read the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. When I was a teacher, this is what was the start of liberating me from thinking, you know, my small thinking and thinking a little bigger, because I read that book as a part of teaching entrepreneurship in high school. And I read it myself and just had this epiphany that I really wasn't on the right track if I wanted to have any wealth built up in my life. And it's this idea of how many days can we survive without physically working to maintain our standard of living. So if our expenses are $4,000 a month and we have savings of $12,000, our wealth is 3 months or 90 days. Now, how many of you guys, if you looked into your savings account, have $12,000 sitting there, or $6,000, or even $1 in our savings account? You know, it's not typical that any of us with today's economy and the way things are going, that we have any kind of nest eggs saved up. If you do, and you know, some of us that have been around for a while have been smart with our money and have put it away. And that's great, because you've started to learn the value of this lesson. But I know that when I was teaching, I mean, it was hand to mouth. The government was taking a big percentage of my income. You know, we had young kids, and we basically were just hand to mouth. We were just trying to survive. There was no money there for us to be saving. So there was no wealth. So if you had to stop working today, or if you lost your job, how long could you last? You know, it can be sobering. And your goal should be to develop residual income or passive income greater than your monthly expenses. And, you know, when you look at this is purely residual income. It takes a long time to get it to passive. When it would ever become passive is if you maxed out your center, but maxed it out, like maxed it out to the point where it could never, you know, whittle its way down for you to lose less than 250 cycles a week, which is really, really beautiful. But for the most part, this is residual income, meaning that we're working for the income. We're creating the income, but the work that we do will pay us over and over and over again based on the leverage that's created. How do we create this kind of stuff? Well, you have options. You know, you can buy stocks. I'm an investor, so I'm into the markets. You know, I do different things. But what's really exciting and what I've really fallen in love with is the idea of business working for you. You know, and network marketing is one of those things. Network marketing is one of those opportunities that, for me, you know, when I was first introduced by Kyle, I remember telling him, look, I'll do the products, but I will never do that business. I'm not going to be involved in any of that woo, clacker, making noises and, you know, cheering and yucking and doing parties. I'm not doing any of that stuff. Like, I'm in real business. I do real business over here. I mean, it's so funny. I just didn't understand. I had this picture of my mom doing some Tupperware. You know, I have a bunch of ladies over and we're selling like bowls with lids. So I didn't want to do any of that. But once I got involved in network marketing and really understood, what I learned was that there's nothing more beautiful in business than something that leverages or scales. And it's become visceral inside my body, to the point that I will never look at an opportunity again, whether that be investing, business, or whatever. The first questions I ask the person that I'm talking to is, does it leverage and does it scale? That's it. Because it's just something that we've learned from this experience with Isogenics that could never change. So for example, when we were looking for another stream of income, we moved parts of our house into Airbnb. Why? Because we're leveraging something that we already have. We have a house. Our kids moved out. We live on the lake. We can charge a premium. We can create an incredible experience. Our house owes us money. So let's make it work for us. It's leveraging. Do you understand what I'm saying here? It becomes a mindset that anything that we do, like, just if when I could be coaching, Heather said I was a mentor and a coach. I could coach. I could do business coaching right now, and I could take on customers. I could make a good money, but I can't wrap my head around trading time for dollars now. I just can't do it. So if I was to spend an hour coaching somebody, I know I could charge this much, but it still does my head in because there's no leverage there. I'm kind of like, well, why wouldn't I spend that hour creating more leverage or taking advantage of the leverage I have created in my Isogenics business? Because that would pay me way more than the coaching ever would. Do you understand the distinction? Right? So that's really what we're trying to do. So this conversation is always about a business that has an opportunity that other ones don't have, and really understanding how you can create leverage. But sometimes that leverage could be overwhelming. So when you look at this business, what's so good about it? We're not really dealing with overhead. We don't have employees to deal with. We get all the tax advantages from it. There's no real limit to what we can create. We don't need specialized knowledge. We can learn as we go. And leverage. Leverage is the most important thing of the goal to what we have here. It's all about leverage. And when you think about this in the real world, in the employment world, sometimes we get a bit unappreciative and hard on ourselves about the level that we're at. And, you know, Nicole, close your ears. This is something for you not to listen to right now, but it's been tough in the last 7 years. It's been a challenge. And most of our incomes have come backwards. Not all of ours, but most of ours are just not where they were before because there's been stuff going on and it's normal business cycles. In that same time, there are businesses that are going wild and crazy. It doesn't mean that anybody's doing something right or wrong. It's just the ebbs and flows. But so we can become very hard on ourselves and we can feel like we're failing or there's something wrong. But we also have to remember that if we compare this to normal life, look at this fixed deposit. Like if you were to save money to try to create the residual income that we can create from our Isogenics business, if we wanted $250 a month, we'd have to put $100,000 in the bank. Now, remember how that may have felt when I said true wealth. What would happen if you lost your job and you had $12,000 in the bank? You'd last 3 months, right? And most of us don't have $12,000 in the bank. Well, how many of us have $100,000 in the bank or $100,000 to put in the bank just so we can make $250 a month? What? Like it makes no sense. But we can do that by creating just over a cycle a week. We can create that in residual income. Does that require $100,000 of investment? No. It takes blood, sweat, and tears is what it takes. It takes our ability, like we were chatting a little bit about getting out of our comfort zone to do these reach outs. Well, which one's harder? The reach out or the 100 grand? Which one's harder? Like we have to think about this a little bit, right? Choose your hard. Is it hard to really reach out if you have something that can help somebody? If you could be of service? If you could really change a life? We know that we probably don't have the $100,000, right? So if we want to create something special, we need to create it. If we want $500 a month, we'd need $200,000 in the bank, right? If we want $3,000, look at the numbers here. When I had my target, I wanted to make $10,000 a month. And when I was running that distribution company, I thought, wow, that would be amazing. That'd be amazing. Well, if I thought about the investment required to be $4 million, it would never happen. That's just not happening. But it can be created. How many people in Isogenics, I don't know the number, but if you think about the 6-figure income earners, there's quite a few of them that are created in Isogenics. There's proof that it works, and that people can do that. And it doesn't have to be $10,000 a month. It could be 5, it could be 3. Here's the beautiful thing about it is you get to choose your path too. What's the meaningful number? And I always think about this thing, like, I don't know what it is in Australia, but in Canada, the average income in Canada is $2,400 a month. $2,400 a month replaces the average income in Canada. And that's like, what would that be? 10 cycles a month, 10 cycles a week? And you could liberate people everywhere for 10 cycles a week. So when we think about that, it's like, is that doable? Can we help people create 10 cycles? We're not talking about 250 here. We're talking about 10. And if we really break this down, can we get to the first checkpoint? And if you think about, if your Mount Everest is $10,000 a month, I don't know what it is. It's going to be different for everybody. But let's just say because of this graph here or this spreadsheet, that $10,000 represents the pinnacle, the summit of Everest. You don't get to the summit in your first step. You got to go to the first base camp. And once you're at first base camp, then you go to second base camp and you work your way up the different base camps and you acclimate yourself to, like, you don't just go one day and you hang out. You got to spend some time there. You got to like acclimate to the environment. You got to feel your way in there. Are you guys resonating? So it's normal. It's normal not to race to the top. If you race to the top, most of the people would die, right? You can't go there. You crash and burn. But if you can go away one base camp at a time, it's really, really important. That's an important step. So wherever that base camp might be, I want to talk about one that is the 5 cycles. 5 cycles for me represents base camp number 1. Okay. And one of the big problems in this industry and in life is that we make two big, huge mistakes. And the first mistake, and especially what I found in network marketing and watching leadership, and some people like succeeding and some people crashing and burning. But by and large, there's 2 things that'll happen. And one is people will grossly overestimate what they're going to make in their first year. And because they don't get there, they quit. Okay, so they grossly overestimate what they're going to make in their first year. And because they don't get that, they feel like they're failures and they quit because they'll compare to other people. Look at, why is Sally going so fast? Why is this like, and there's just, everybody has their own story. But the most tragic one, because most people don't understand the power of leverage, is that they grossly underestimate how much they'll make in their first 5 years. And because they quit too soon, or because they'll quit because they're not allowing the leverage to build, and they give up on it too soon. They grossly underestimate, because when that leverage builds, true magic happens. Okay, I'll give you a quick example. And this is just full transparency. In Carrie-Lynn, in my first year of building, and I wasn't really participating super hard because I was running that other company, and Carrie-Lynn kind of took the lion's share. We made $3,000. Okay, now I don't see a lot of clapping. I would have appreciated a little more recognition, but in our first year, we made $3,000. In our second year, we made $11,000. Now at that point, I'm kind of like, wow, yahoo! I mean, that's like 400% increase. Because from business, I'm pretty stoked about that. Like, we're getting our products paid for. This is pretty good. And our third year, we made $85,000. Okay, so $85,000 with tax benefits almost equaled what I made running an entire corporation after tax dollars. But combined in the first 3 years, we were just over $100,000, right? Math? That math, we were just in and around, or just over $100,000. We were recognized. Heather talks about us being legacy members, 123 in 2014. And that meant that we had accumulated in earnings $1 million. So $1 million of accumulated earnings. Now let's think about this. In our first 3 years, we made $100,000. After our 6th year, we were at $1 million. So in our 3 next years, 4, 5, and 6, we made $900,000. Now that wasn't because of our effort had changed. It's because our leverage had built. Do you see the distinction? The same amount of effort, the same amount of work. We weren't working harder. We weren't working different. We were doing the same thing. But it's just that our organization started to grow. The leverage started to build. And that's what was really important. Over the last 16 years, Carrie-Lynn and I have personally started about 450 personal enrollments, personal customers. Our organization is well over 320,000 people. So you can see that that is leverage. How does that even happen? It's like the eighth wonder of the world, and we all have the ability to access that if we allow the space to happen and not allow this second mistake to happen, or either of these mistakes for that matter. So let's get to it. The road to 5 cycles. This represents everything. So I hope I don't lose everybody, because math is, or as the Aussies, maths, I think you put an S on the end of that thing for some reason, it's plural. Maths. Anyway, 5 cycles, we know, or hopefully know, 900 BV is required to create a cycle, okay? And for the context of this conversation, we're gonna just do a level build. Some of you guys might have one leg that's bigger than the other, but just for the ease of the conversation, we'll make it even. So for 400 BV, we're gonna split that in half. So we'll have 250 on each side. And why I choose 5 cycles is because it's the first base camp. And you know what? It's the hardest base camp to get to. It's the one where all of the foundation is built. It's the one that takes the longest. It's the one that makes us want to quit. It's the one that makes us question whether this is possible. But once you get to this piece, you have the foundation to start building it. And if you can get to 5, can you get to 10? You just do this again, just like I said with Nicole. If you can get to manager, you've already figured it out. You just do it again, right? Can you do it again? Nicole, can you do it again? Hell yeah, you can do it again, right? And you're going to do it again. And if you do it again, then you do it again. If you get to 5 cycles, you just do it again. Then you're at 10. If you do it again, then you're at 20. You do it again, you're at 40. Right? You do it again, you're at 80 and you're laughing, right? You just keep going. So when you look at this, we can get ourselves to 5 cycles, okay? But what if we could get 2 people to get to 5 cycles? What if we could help 2 people get to 3? Do you think it's more empowering if we could help 2 people get to 3, or if that's where our focus went? If all of a sudden we shifted our focus from me to we, how does that feel? How does it feel if I think I'd like to get to 5 cycles, or I'd like to help 2 people get to 3 cycles? Is there a difference? Do you feel different with that? Well, 5 cycles requires 4,500 BV a week, right? And 450 BV. Now, here's where the math is. If you want to figure out, well, how many people do I actually need for this? How many people does it require to get to that? Well, 4,500 BV, this is math. You might want to write this formula down, because you can teach this to your people, okay? When you map it out. We're going to just use, again, for the graphic, we're going to use 100 BV as a average auto ship. We know that some auto ships will be less, but we also know that some auto ships will be more, okay? So we're just going to average it out. So if we divide 4,500 by 100, we have 45 ordering 100 BV, create 4,500 BV per week. Does that make sense? You guys with me on that? 45 people. Okay, well, this is a weekly thing. So then what we need to do to figure out how many people are in our organization to create 5 cycles a week, every single week, is that we need to times that by 4.3, because there's 4.3 weeks in a month. Some are 5, some are 4, right? So we just use 4.3. And when we do that, we get 194 people. Okay, so I always like to round up. 200 people create 5 cycles. If we were doing a level build, 100 on your left, 100 on your right, 5. Okay? You guys with me on that? It's good that you're recording this, Heather, because I mean, I guess people can.
We're with you. We got it.
All right, cool. All right, so then this is our first step, right? We start thinking outside of ourselves. Okay, I want to get to 5. How do I do that? 2 people. So if I can get somebody to 3, I'm going to impress upon them to help 2 people get to 2. Do you think that I could help this person get to 3 cycles by helping them help 2 people get to 2 cycles? And when we really look at that, all we need to do is create 2,700 BV for the 3 cycles. That's a level build, so you can do the math on the sides. It's 1,350. And this is just the same math process. 3 cycles requires 900 BV times 3, it's 2,700 BV. We take this BV, we 100, 27. Okay, 27 people are going to be required to create this every single week. And when we times that by 4.3, it's 116 total people. Of course, I like to round it up. So that's 120. We'll create 3 cycles, 60 on each side. Easy? It's pretty easy math, yes? Okay, so let's play it another level deeper. What are we going to do, and how are we going to like inspire these people to create 2 cycles? Well, can we help them help 2 people get to 1 cycle, right? 1,800 BV, 900 on each side. So we're really looking at it in its simplest form here. 2 cycles requires 1,800 BV. That's 18 people, okay? Only 18 people times 4.3 weeks, we're at 77 people. So now we found a way to help 2 cycles. And you know what? If somebody's goal was to create 2 cycles, if that was like meaningful for them, could you map it out? Map it out. Most people want to know, well, how many people do I need for that? But it's always about leverage. Because the first thing, look at that 77 or 80, because I'll round it up. The first thing people do is they're like, oh my gosh, like I can't enroll 80 people. I can't enroll 80 people. But it's like, well, you don't have to enroll 80 people. Like, do you know 2 people that could enroll 40? Or do you like know 10 people that could enroll 8? Or I don't know, do you know 20 people that could enroll 4? Like, do you understand what I'm saying? It's math. You just inspire everybody to chip in just a little bit. And our income isn't created by rock stars, created by people creating 1 cycle a week. Averages. We only have, of all of our consultants, we have 1 influences our income directly in a big way. And that's David and Sarah Jilks, who enrolled Jen and John Patch. Other than that, all of our consultants earn a cycle or less. Well, actually, that's not true. Maybe there's a couple that enroll that make 5 cycles. So I'm fibbing a little bit, but you get my idea. They're not like maxed out people. They're not like 50 cycle people. They're all under 10. There's nobody cycling more than 10 except for David and Sarah that are our personal enrollments. But it's all about teaching other people to help create success for other people. So the 1 cycle is still just about 900 BV, right? So how do we help people get to 1 cycle? That's the magic. That's where the magic is. Can you get people just to get their products paid? It's not very many people. It's like 38 people or 40, 20 on each side. And you can get people to cycle 1 time a week. And you know what the retention is when people cycle 1 time a week? It's 95%. 95% retention. Why would you ever not order? Like, why would you quit if you earn 1 cycle a week? Your products are paid. Like, you'll never pay for products again. So this is really the foundation of where you're at right now. So when you look at this holistically, we want to get to 5 cycles to hit first base count. All we need to do is help 2 people get to 3. And by doing that, we actually help these people get to 3 by helping them get 2 people to 2. And then we just help those people get these people to 1. And this is what an organization can look like, is just a bunch of people doing a little bit of work, right? And sometimes our mindset gets on finding that rock star. Like, this person's going to change my life. This person's going to like take me to the moon. You know what? If you just have an organization filled with beautiful people that do a little bit, it contributes holistically to a lot. It can change their lives, but it can, and as a result of changing their lives, it changes your lives. Does that make sense to you guys? This idea that when people look at this for like 5 cycles and 200 people or more, just because it can become overwhelming. You break it down and you say, nah, you know what? It's actually not, it's not like that. If you split it in 2, you got 100 here, and then it just gets shared amongst many people, and it just kind of adds up from there. And I think the big piece with that is that, like, this is that Zig Ziglar quote that's, I'm sure you've seen, but to me, it really resonates for this conversation, because it's not about us focusing on it's just helping other people get what they want, whether that's a financial outcome or whether that's a physical outcome. It doesn't matter what it is. People are hurting, people struggle, and we hold something that people want. They just don't know what they don't know, right? And if you people just listen and then be the problem solver. All we do is solve problems, and the better you do it, the more you'll get paid. Okay, and I hope you understand what I just said. We are problem solvers, and the more you solve problems and the better you solve problems, the more value you create in the world, the more you earn. And it's just that simple. It doesn't work any other way. If you don't create value, you won't get paid. If you don't solve problems, you won't get paid. You have to look at it that way. It's the only way. And that's what this is, adding value. How do we add value? How do we add value? And it's a habit that just comes. So like when Heather asked if we could do this, well, sure. Like, you guys aren't my team. It doesn't matter. It's about the mindset of creating value in the world. You guys, by being the light workers and by sharing your stories, you bring more life to Isogenics. Is that a good thing for me or a bad thing for me? Right? It's a good thing for me. It's a good thing for all of us. The more there is, we all in, right? And this is the thing that I'll leave you with in this presentation, is just that this journey's been the hardest journey of my life. Like, it's the hardest one. There's nowhere to hide. Network marketing is like super humbling. You can't hide anywhere. There's no staff room to go hide in, right? There's busy. You get paid on the value you create in the world. If you do not create value, you won't get paid. And when you're not getting paid, it's very humbling, because because we know we're not working, right? When we're not creating value. And what's hard is that our outcomes tell us what we're doing. Our results tell us what we're doing. And sometimes in work, employment work or whatever, we can kind of coast around a little bit and still get a paycheck. Not so much here. But you'll also never earn as much at that work, as you will here if you really create the value. So what I'm saying is the journey is not easy. And, you could be in a position where the people you love violently oppose what you're doing. But if you can work your way through it and remember why you're doing it, it is absolutely worth it. It's one of the greatest things that we've ever done and been a part of. And it's just taught us so much. And we've always felt like if everything and the skills that we've learned far surpass the millions of dollars that we've earned with Isogenics, because we just know that the opportunity with Isogenics has changed us forever, and just better as human beings and skilled to be able to manage and things. We would have never opened up an Airbnb if it wasn't for Isogenics, because it taught us something really valuable. And I think that's what that's all about with this journey here. So just gonna stop the share here. And then Heather, if you want, like, open it up or something, or just see if there's some feedback.
Thank you so much, Shawn. I think the one thing that, seeing you do this again, that's absolutely stood out to me is the numbers. And, I think it's so easy for us to think that we can do this, finding 3 people and they group together and one goes consultant and then another one, and, finding small numbers. But what you've done is reinforce the importance of the bigger numbers, because there's so many people out there that need our products. And when you think about when you first did this years ago to now, look at the different opportunities that we have now to talk to people about. We can run a business on collagen. We can run a business on 30-day resets. We can run a business, for us, we have a new whole menopause, a system now. We can run a business on that. So those numbers become even easier because of the fact that we have so many different ways of enrolling people and so many different solutions. So yeah, I think the biggest thing is the big reminder of the numbers and sharing the load. And so for those of you who looked at that and maybe freaked out for a second of 200 people, just think about it. When you break that down to all of your people introducing a few, it's really not that much. So yeah, I'd love to see if there's any other questions for anybody, but that's been the biggest thing for me, is a reminder of the numbers, because I love maths. So you don't lose me with maths. I love it. Yeah, I'd be curious to know anybody else's questions or anything else you want to add now with me saying.
Well, Heather, I'll just add one thing math wise, and I won't get into the math of it, but it speaks to the leverage. So I was working with one of my leaders who so I don't know your team here and who has maybe a stronger leg or something, right? Like a stronger leg than another, maybe not an even build. I'm not sure, but this particular leader had a stronger leg. And she was really struggling because, the compensation plan, like her minor leg wasn't very strong. So she wasn't earning a lot of money. And she had a goal. She wanted to get to like 30 cycles. I was like, wow, that's a pretty big goal. But I said, do you have anybody in your organization that you're really pumped to work with? She's like, oh, I got this. Yeah, so we had this conversation. And I was like, well, how would you like to increase your cycles by 30? Like, you're at like 6 right now, but what about 30? She's like, oh, that'd be amazing. And I showed her like the same kind of leverage, because the leader was in her minor team. And I said, well, if you can help this individual get to 10 cycles, you'll get to 30. Like, you'll increase your cycles by 30. Because remember, instead of it going, like, you go from 6% to like 18%, like for every 300 BV then that this person creates in her 10 cycles, creates 3 cycles, right? The 900 BV to create the one cycle. Did I lose everybody? The 900 cycles that the person on the minor leg creates for their one cycle, right? All of it flows up to her, and she only needs 300 for each cycle. So 900 divided by 3 is the 300. So she cycles 3 times for every one. So if that person organically get to 10, she increases her cycles 30 times, like 30 cycles. So every time, so if you have, it's the same idea, like, well, if you get to 5, can you help 2 people get to, let's say that you wanted to increase, you have a uneven build and you want to increase your cycles by whatever, 10. Well, if you could help somebody get to 5 or 3, You know, whatever you help that person in your minor league get to, you'll 3 times your result. So if you help them get, you'll increase your cycles by 9. If you help them get to 5, you'll increase your cycles by 15. That's what really gets people excited about their goal. So we used to, like with Jen's team, we would map it out, and we would identify leaders. We'd have this like little mapping party, and we like, well, let's get Adam James to like, what do we think that he could get to? He could get to 20. And what do you think, Dax, Andrew Logan, what do you think Andrew could get to? You know, what do you think Nat and Sarah could get to? You know, and we were kind of going through these different people, you know, Kylie Donaldson, you know, Alec and Deb Munn, you know, there's few rock stars in there. But it was like, there was a time when when we first started working with her, she was cycling 5 times. You know, she hit the road to 5 cycles. And then we mapped out what it would look like to max out. It was her max out plan. And it was by helping all of her leaders get to their points, 40 cycles, 50 cycles. And we just mapped it out with the math. And it's so powerful, because then we go into those leaders and we're like, all right, you want your goal is to get to 60 cycles, and you can do it. All right, who do you have in your organization? And then you map it out, and you start looking at it individually, you know, with leadership, as opposed to just generically with the 5 cycles. So there's another level to this conversation. When you've really understood the 5 cycles, now you can go in and do a map of your entire organization, put all of your people in there, and then have conversations with those people about what their goals are. How many cycles would you like to get to in the next 90 days? And then map it out, and then help them map it out, and then help them map it out. It would be something that after your run to exec, Heather, you should do that for the new year, launching into the new year. Have people map out their leadership. And like for somebody like Nicole, who may not have those people there, it's about casting the vision of who she'd love to link arms with. Like, what people in her life does she want to do this with? I would have never thought, like, when we started this, you know, Warren, Arlene, Lance, and Kyle and Megan to Crash, and David and Sarah, and Jen and John. Like, I don't know if anybody tracks what we do, but we just were in Croatia with Jen and Jono, Warren and Arlene, like all our, like the people you just went and saw, like at the event.
I was definitely watching
Yeah.
that one. That was big FOMO, seeing you all hanging out together over there in Croatia.
But I mean, that's the vision though, Heather, right? Like, we had a vision before it happened that we wanted to travel the world together. We wanted to have fun. We wanted to do this, have an impact. But then we like to spend time together, you know? So, but that all came from casting a vision for our people, and then having them fulfill that vision, you know, and really work towards it. So it can be very powerful.
So I have a big question. If you think about it, going from manager, you said it's simple because you just keep doing manager. You get this 5 cycle concept, and then you start mapping out the big picture. So if someone wanted to max out their business, like how many people do they need to be working with? Do you have a formula or a thought around that as to, you know, that next big picture level? You know, how many people to be working with?
No, because, you know, like, it doesn't, because everybody's going to have a different goal. So like, let's say that I'm mapping you out. All right. And you were like, well, where do you want to get to in the next year? Like by December 2025, where do you want your business to be?
I would want my business to be at least 100 cycles at a minimum.
Okay.
So say 100.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's say, so you'd be at the top, and we'd put 100 cycles there.
Yeah.
And then you have your left and your right team. And then it doesn't matter that they don't have to be a direct sponsor. They don't have to be your direct enrollments. So you go through your left organization, but they'll all be on the outside, not on the insides of any legs, just on the outside legs. So you put all your leaders down there that are visual, that you might have some influence over, right? And then the ones down the right. And, you know, maybe it's, maybe you got Raquel on your left, and, you know, like wherever they are, I don't know, but you go to Raquel and you're like, okay, December 2025, Raquel, where do you want to be? What's your goal, Raquel?
No, is she there? Where is she?
Yeah, she's just
I'm trying to unmute, sorry. End of 2025, I would like to be at 150 cycles.
Oh, wow. Well, that's gonna be good for Heather, isn't it? Okay,
Well, if
so
I
that's
was in Heather's team, it would be.
We're
oh,
not,
okay.
not financially linked. You can
Okay. All right, perfect. But let's just use it okay, so that's cool. But let's say that
Let's say I
Raquel
am.
was in there, right? And she's like 150 cycles. Well, now it's like, oh, well, that's exciting. Might need to up your game, Heather, if it's 150 cycles. But we put a little circle with Raquel at 150 cycles, and then we go to the next person and we go in genealogy. So like where they are in the organization. So if Raquel's at the top, you know, the next people that fall in order. And we have these conversations.
Oops.
20, and Rachel says, I'm going to get to 15. And our powerful creator is at like 35, you know, like maybe we have Susie Q's at like 4 cycles or something. I don't know. But like you map them all. And then essentially what you do is you figure out how much BV is coming through there and where do you sit with your 100 cycles? Like, do you have enough volume by helping those people hit your target, right? Like, and if you don't, like, let's say that you're like, everybody wraps up, you need 100 cycles and you're kind of like at 80 cycles. If everybody was to hit their goal, you're at 80 cycles. Well, now you know that you have to create 20 cycles with some organic leadership. Like, so I'm going to work with these people here to get these people to their goals. And then I'm going to be a part of creating the space for the rest of the 20. And I have like 15 months to do it. So like if there's space to do it, I'm attracting leaders all the time. I can't wait, right? Like this is what's happening. I'm creating space, but it's all on a map. It's all on a big whiteboard and you have it wrapped there. And then we go to Raquel and we're like, okay, like, let's do it for you. Now you're making your map out and you have your leaders there. And some of them might be borrowed from me. We might have the same leader. And I'm like, oh, don't worry about that. Brian said he's going to do 15 cycles. So put Brian there, put 15. You can help me work with them, but just know, like, I already got it. Like but count that towards your total. And we map out Raquel and she's on her way. And then we map out Nicole and we map out Rachel and we map everybody out. And now they're working with their leaders.
I think it's only me who's losing it.
Figure it out. And we over here are going to create some leadership. And now we're a bit more focused on exactly what we need to do, not only in what we need to create ourselves, but what we have to help our team create. So it takes the 5 cycles and it animates it a much more because now we have people and their particular goals. It's the same concept, just more, it's more complex because you're a more mature leader. Does that make sense? So for Nicole, we're just going to help. Am I cutting in and out a little bit?
Yeah, just a little bit. I wasn't sure if it's my internet or anybody, but I think just a little bit. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, might be me. But the idea is just for some people, it's going to be the simple road to 5 cycles, but for a mature leader, it might be a little bit more in depth, like the one I'm telling you about.
Yeah, that's absolutely cool. And I think, you know, getting that power of realizing also who's working together, you know, on the different legs as well is incredible. And once you've got it mapped out, mapping it out for the others is brilliant. Thank you. Yeah. So
well, and they learn that, right? Like if I said, oh, Raquel, like I got Brian in here, like, don't worry, I'll take care of Brian, but like he's going to contribute to your 150 cycles. And Raquel had no idea, well, who's Brian? Like I just work with my team, right? It's like, no.
Brian is my husband, and I can tell you he's not going to do 15. He might get to 5.
Yes. Well, go Brian if you can get to 5. Like that's still pretty good. But I mean, the idea is that sometimes we don't realize that everybody in our downline is our team, you know, because I enrolled them. Well, that's not really my team. Well, yeah, it is. He's below you. So he's contributing to your outcome. So any support you want to give will be good support. Like, we're all doing it. A rising tide lifts all ships, right? Like, so if it's about understanding the organization and where all the people fit in.
Yeah.
And it's very powerful.
Wow, that's amazing, Shawn. And I've been so engrossed in this. I haven't even looked at the clock, and I just realized it's 10 past, which is okay for us because we're all happy to soak up a bit more of you. But for you, it's after midnight. So we've gone into, your freaking day.
That's what happens. I get run in my mouth and I don't know what that is. So
Happy Sunday.
yeah, happy Sunday.
Exactly.
Happy Sunday.
Exactly. I'm just catching up to you guys now, right?
Yeah. You joined us Sunday. We're both on Sunday now. So yeah, thank you guys. Thank you all for being on first and absorbing this and taking it in. I think it will be definitely a one that you will watch again, and we'll be putting it in the group. Shawn, we are blessed to just have someone of your caliber to just be able to share the way you have. And put some love in the chat for Shawn. He can see it now because you can't see the chat when you're sharing. So put that in there. And we'll look forward to seeing you again. And maybe we'll do a 2:00 afternoon call instead of 4 and just give you a little bit more of your Saturday night rather than taking you through till after midnight. But we really appreciate you. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. I really enjoyed it and meeting everybody. And yeah, it's anything we can do to help support, that's for sure.
Awesome.
Thanks,
Okay.
Shawn.
Happy Sunday.
Thanks, Shawn. Have a great day.
See you
Night.
guys.
All right. Take care, you guys.
Thanks, Shawn.
Bye.